The Gravel War, a tale from decades past, still brimming with mystery and intrigue. Over the years, I have documented the unusual legend of the Scout, the dark history of the Administrator, the twisted inventions of the Engineer, and many more, but none compare to the most mysterious class, the Pyro. Each generation of the war brought a new wave of 9 mercenaries, and among them always burned a pyromaniac, each one different from the last. What traits made the Pyro class so effective? Were they all sadistic? And what exactly was Pyroland? In this video, we explore the lore and story behind the Pyro in Team Fortress. To understand the birth of the Pyro class, we must travel all the way back to 1850. 3 words describe this period perfectly: Lincoln, stairs, and hat. The Badlands of New Mexico had once been a barren place, quiet and without hostility. That was until Plutarch and Redmond Man inherited it from their late father, Zephaniah. In his will, he offered them this land to share, knowing full well that they despised each other. As predicted, the brothers refused to share. With the aid of the elusive TF Industries, Plutarch established Builders League United, while Redmond founded Reliable Excavation Demolitions. Beneath these banners, they built countless shell companies across the land in their bid to claim it. Beneath these companies, the brothers had state-of-the-art bases constructed, ready for war. But who were their warriors? Through TF Industries, 9 mercenaries were chosen, and each defined their own class. Plutarch's lineup was made up of many well-known names: Nikolai Tesla as an engineer, Davy Crockett as a sniper, Billy the Kid as a scout, Fu Manchu as a spy, John Henry as a heavy, Alfred Noble as a demoman, Stonewall Jackson as a soldier, Sigmund Freud as a medic, and finally, for this story, Abraham Lincoln as the first Pyro. This was a time before Lincoln's presidential run, when he was an avid inventor, a man who sought to fix the world's problems. He was also a mercenary for the right price, and TF Industries paid well. For his role in this war, Lincoln carried a primitive flamethrower of his own design. It was brass cased, and since this part of the war took place in the mid-19th century, the tank strapped to his back likely held a refined form of kerosene or alcohol. When triggered, the weapon belched liquid fire in a burning stream, coating his screaming enemies until they collapsed in flames. As the Gravel War dragged on into 1851 and beyond, the Mann brothers saw that each side matched the other perfectly, and so the year slipped into a stalemate. However, outside of his contributions to the war, Lincoln thrived. He saw a problem with the world that demanded fixing. Life was cruel, and a strange ailment plagued the population. To reach another floor of a building, people had to rocket jump, a solution that too often ended in missing legs. In 1857, at Ford's Theatre, Lincoln unveiled an invention that would change everything: stairs. A simple, elegant way to move between stories without the constant risk of losing limbs. It was practical, it was safe, and in its own absurd way, it was revolutionary. It was during this period, however, that a rumor spread that Abraham had died during a rocket jump, despite having invented stairs. As a result, mankind swore never to invent anything ever again, and scientists turned instead to the most noble endeavor: astrology. This rumor was untrue, of course, but it showed just how great an impact Abraham Lincoln had. For years, Lincoln fought in the Gravel War, burning his enemies alive and tinkering with inventions between battles. In time, he laid down his flamethrower and turned to politics, rising to become President of the United States. Yet, in April of 1865, at Ford's Theater, President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by John Tower of Hats Booth. With his death, the first Pyro of the Gravel War fell. He left behind a legacy as an inventor, the leader of the free world, and most importantly, the first fire-loving mercenary. The Mann brothers were extremely stubborn men, and through the invention of Radigan Conager's immortality device, they clung to life and dragged themselves into the next century. The first wave of the Gravel War had been long and drawn out, and by the 1930s, those original mercenaries had either grown too old or died. Once again, the brothers reached out to TF Industries and a new wave of mercenaries was selected to fill the roles of those who had come before. New warriors they hoped would claim the land for them, and they called them Team Fortress. This new batch consisted of a heavy weapons guy, Greg the Scout, Ross the Soldier, Greg the Demoman, Fred the Engineer, a spy, a medic, Virgil the Sniper, and finally, Beatrice the Pyro. As the Pyro on this team, Beatrice was essential. Oh, and the pain and misery she inflicted. For her role in this war, Beatrice received a deadly selection of weapons from Manco, tools designed for both offense and defense, each one suited to a particular occasion. Just like her predecessor, this Pyro's main weapon was a flamethrower that let her set her targets alight, and she took grim delight in watching them burn. It was highly effective. Not only could it decimate several foes at once, but its range let her do so from a safe distance. In both cramped halls and wide open fields, she was absolutely deadly. From afar, she wielded an incendiary cannon that fired blazing rockets. If a target was struck, the projectile would once again set them ablaze in an absolutely agonizing moment of torment. Up close, Beatrice had her choice of cruelty, a crowbar or a single-barreled shotgun. Both were perfect for ending a life, and she picked between them depending on just how messy she wanted the moment to be. Just like every other class, she also carried grenades. One was a standard hand grenade, and the other, more enticing for her twisted tastes, was a napalm grenade that set the battlefield ablaze within its blast radius. Manco had armed this sadistic pyromaniac with everything she could ever truly want to feel happy. When her victims were struck by multiple forms of fire, the afterburn guaranteed a critical hit, dropping them all the quicker in a haze of smoke and screams. The Pyro's weapons were deadly, and with her high health pool, heavy armor, and a fireproof suit to shield her from her own inferno, she was almost unstoppable. As both an offensive and defensive force, Beatrice was essential. From the Rock to Casper to Dust Bowl, she guarded control points with waves of fire, blasted heavies and medics from afar with rockets, and flushed out lurking spies with random sweeps of flame. When she turned to offense, entire teams crumbled beneath her rage. She often kept a watchful eye around Virgil, ever wary of traitors in disguise, and the two of them worked frighteningly well together. It was no surprise they became fast friends. Both delighted in their work, and both took pleasure in the suffering of anyone unlucky enough to cross their path. Even with all her power and teamwork, the war dragged on, slipping once more into a stalemate. As the decades rolled by, and although Beatrice outlasted her predecessor, Abraham, the Mann brothers once again sought younger mercenaries to fight their endless war, hoping this wave might finally tip the balance. By 1968, the Gravel War had dragged on for 118 years, with both sides locked in the same tiresome deadlock. With the aid of TF Industries again, the Mann brothers rebranded Beatrice and her band of mercenaries as Team Fortress Classic and pulled them from the Gravel War. In the summer of '68, the administrator, the elusive force behind TF Industries, selected the next batch of mercenaries to fight in the third wave of this war. The lineup boasted Jeremy the Scout, Jane the Soldier, Tavish the Demoman, Misha the Heavy, Dell the Engineer, Mr. Monday the Sniper, Mr. Ludwig the Medic, a spy, and, of course, a new Pyro. Interestingly enough, more is known about the spy than about this Pyro. In fact, more is known about Abraham Lincoln and Beatrice. Normally, this is the part where I uncover a character's backstory, their estimated age, country of origin, gender, name, and how they came to fight in such a strange and petty war. But here, there is nothing. Yet, the little we do know is fascinating. Only two things are known for sure about the mysterious Pyro. He sets things on fire and does not speak. In fact, only the part about setting things on fire is undisputed. Some believe his occasional rasping wheeze may be an attempt to communicate through a mouth obstructed by a filter and attached to lungs ravaged by constant exposure to his asbestos-lined suit. Either way, he was a fearsome, inscrutable, on-fire Frankenstein of a man. That is, if he even was a man. Just like their predecessor, the Pyro ignited the battlefield and played both an offensive and defensive role. A pyromaniac by nature, Manco let them wield their own creations while also supplying new tools of destruction. Upon joining Team Fortress, the Pyro carried a standard flamethrower as their primary weapon to set enemies ablaze, a shotgun for close encounters, and for the closest of fights, a fire axe. Each weapon had its place, and each was capable of horrific damage. As the years went on, the administrator observed her mercenaries, and her assistant Miss Pauling kept them out of trouble. Manco also expanded the Pyro's arsenal far beyond the basics. Strange contraptions and brutal tools found their way into their hands. The backburner, rainblower, flare gun, frying pan, and the home wrecker, each with its own cruel purpose. With every addition, the Pyro discovered fresh ways to spread fire, chaos, and horrific damage across the battlefields of Dust Bowl, Two Fort, and the Gorge, amongst many. But why was the Pyro feared more than a spy or a demoman? From what we know, the Pyro had likely suffered a head injury, something that TF Industries and Manco appear to have weaponized. Their fireproof suit did more than keep out the heat, it shut the world away. Their mask, labeled the Optical Mask, warped the worldview of the wearer. This was likely given to them by Manco. From their perspective, the Pyro did not see the pain, the fear, the terror they unleashed on those around them. They saw something else. Pyroland, a mystical, magical world of joy. Through their eyes, fire appeared as rainbows, their foes as flying babies, and their axe as a giant lollipop they longed to give them. In reality, when they offered a floating baby a lollipop, they were smashing the victim's head in with a fire axe. The blistering flare gun shot looked like bubbles from a wand, and the screams it provoked reached the Pyro as giggles. The Pyro believed they were giving happiness and joy. Their ammo appeared as cakes, and when they inevitably blew someone up, the victims exploded into nice items. The mercenaries on the other teams were terrified of the Pyro. Some saw them as a freak and shuddered to imagine what lay behind that mask of chronic cruelty. Abraham Lincoln was an inventor who enjoyed using his weapons. Beatrice was a sadist who enjoyed inflicting pain. This Pyro, however, was different. In a way, they were innocent, weaponized by TF Industries and unaware of the horrors they committed and the nightmares they gave. Pyro was vital for the success of Team Fortress. They swept wide areas with burning flames for spies, knocked sappers off the engineers' buildings, and watched over the kingdom of Pyroland from high after a boost from the thermal thruster jetpack. This role was well paid, and the other mercenaries enjoyed the spoils of killing, but the Pyro did not care about money. They just wanted to treat those around them. As for who was under the suit, well, this remains the Pyro's biggest mystery. As I said, their name, age, place of birth, and gender have never been revealed. Both male and female pronouns have also been used for them. Some even speculate they're not human at all. Outside of the war, Pyro was treated almost like a child by the rest of the team. One year, Del told them the story of Australian Christmas by the fire, and at Halloween gatherings, they were often left to entertain themselves. Yet, when the Pyro wanted something, they simply went and got it. Though seen as not as clever as the others, on one occasion, the Pyro broke into Bilious Gorge, one of the administrator's top secret bases, a place with high security. They wanted a new weapon and even beat the Heavy there by 3 minutes. Although both of them wanted new guns, the administrator claimed her resources were not infinite. To persuade the Pyro to leave and allow him the gun, the Heavy simply handed over a lighter to play with, something to create fire. For years, Pyro was indispensable in the Gravel War. Then it came to a sudden end. Following the end of the Gravel War, the Pyro almost faded into the background. During Man vs. Machine, Grey Man, the third secret brother of Redmond and Blutarch, led robotic counterparts of Team Fortress in a bid to seize Manco by force. Saxton Hale, the CEO of Manco, hired Pyro and the rest of the mercenaries to defend the company's bases. When the fighting ground to another stalemate, he changed tactics and used his intelligence to claim the mantle of CEO from Hale. Without a war to fight in, the team scattered. Some went into hiding while others just started new lives. Jane the soldier headed to LA to work as a tour guide. Spine Jeremy ended up in prison, and Tavish returned home to live with his mother. Even the administrator and Miss Pauling disappeared. Pyro, however, chose a different path. They secured a job at Frontier Engineering and somehow became its CEO. In just 6 months, under Pyro's guidance, the company achieved its best quarter. Yet, these were not people to them. They were just toys to play with. Despite having started a new life, when Pyro was pulled out of retirement by Miss Pauling with the promise of fire, they followed. Meanwhile, although Grey Man had seized control of Manco, the vaults did not hold what he sought, Australian, and he knew who had taken it, the administrator. So he hired a new group of mercenaries to hunt her down. Team Fortress Classic. Beatrice was back. Over the next few days, the Pyro followed Miss Pauling to Two Fort, explored the Siberian wilderness with Soldier and Scout, and descended into the sunken land of New Zealand, only to be captured by Team Fortress Classic and taken to Grey Man's Island for interrogation. A lot happened during this period, but not to Pyro. They were just in the background as the rest of the team fought for their lives. Below them, the leader of Team Fortress Classic, the heavy weapons guy asked Beatrice to put her skills to use, to torture their captives for information about the location of the administrator. This classic Pyro did not care about the information itself, only that she was paid to do something she loved, inflicting pain. As she tortured Jane the soldier, however, she did not anticipate that his fiancée, Zana, would cut off her own hand to free herself from her bindings. In a heartbeat, Zana grabbed a grenade from Beatrice's suit, hurled it inside and sealed the mask tight. A thunderous blast followed, and with it, Beatrice the Pyro was gone. Meanwhile, as the team reunited and another war began, Pyro found himself in a supply room and listened as the classic soldier and classic scout spoke of how they intended to adopt children and then use them to. Well, Pyro did not like the direction this conversation was going in and blasted them with their flamethrower. Forever in the background, Pyro followed the rest of the team as Grey Man, the classic heavy, and even the administrator passed away. And then, there were no more wars to fight. Through the 3 waves of the Gravel War, the Pyro class had drawn 3 entirely different souls: a leader, a sadist, and Pyro. While Abraham Lincoln invented stairs and went on to lead a nation, and while Beatrice found joy in the torment of her victims, Pyro seemed happiest simply drifting along, blowing bubbles, offering sweet treats, and following the family they had come to cherish. Jeremy the Scout was clueless about the truth of the Gravel War, man versus machine, and the administrator's hidden goal, yet Pyro knew even less. To them, such matters were smoke in the wind. Several years after the wars had come to an end, in 1987, Jeremy hosted the first of many Smithsmasses. The other mercenaries arrived with their families and loved ones, yet Pyro appeared to come alone, content as ever just to be near their family, the most innocent but dangerous among them. The 3 Pyros of Team Fortress were just 3 we encountered. Across Team Ajax, Team Citadel, and Team Echelon, there would have been more, and one day, hopefully, we can find out about their tales. Although the Pyro was viewed as sadistic and incredibly dangerous, I feel bad for them. They seem to have genuinely viewed the world through literal rose-tinted glasses, supplied by Manco, weaponized by a corporation. The Pyro is my second favorite class after the Engineer, and after rereading the comics for this, I was a little disappointed they did fade into the background as the story focused more on Miss Pauling, Scout, and the Engineer. It seems that as the Pyro was treated more like a child throughout, they were kind of pushed out of the exciting parts for their safety. I also hoped we would get a gender reveal in the final comic, but sadly not. Still, a great character I feel so bad for. Kind of a villain, but also a victim, I guess. I thought that this would be a very short video, and I guess it is by my standard for a Team Fortress topic, in comparison to other Team Fortress videos, but I wanted to cover every class. It was also a great chance to explore Abraham Lincoln and Beatrice. In this video, I also brushed over a ton of events. I wanted to kind of show the Pyro's perspective and how they missed a ton of the action and the moments, but there were some plot points I had to include so the story made sense. I am still working on the timeline I mentioned last week, and I am now hoping it will be out next week. There's just a lot to do for it. That was everything I wanted to say, so if you enjoyed this video, then I would love you to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you did not, and let me know what you thought in the comments section below. I would also like to thank my gold tier patrons and channel members: Queen Arby, Lewis, Oren X, Drakey Phoenix, Downakal Drawings, 501st Clone Boy, River Mendoza, Imperial Embers, Canifex, Jimsy, Average Soul, Azu, Jonas, Yellow Rodriguez, Detroit, Motzi, Brina Lee, Jacqueline Novell, King Jack, Lifeblood, Reaper Gaming, Mamet, Kai the Zin, and Zuni115. What did you think of this topic? Is the Pyro a villain or a victim, and what would you like me to cover next? Let me know in the comments below. This is where our story ends. Check back soon for a new one.